Hello, film fans. Welcome to the Film vs. Film podcast. My name is Martin Harries, your host, and I'm joined by the film encyclopedia man, Boaz Dix. We are a couple of filmmakers on occasion, but mainly can't stop yapping about movies. On this podcast, every episode we pick a topic from a film that's coming out at the cinema or on VOD. Myself and Boaz pick our favourite film from that topic, or team up against a guest and battle it out to decide which film will become the greatest film of all time. If you enjoy this podcast, please leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. Hello, Podderoonies, or Podsters if you prefer. I do get the impression you don't prefer either of those titles, but you got to pick one if you choose to accept it or not. Welcome back to one of our spoiler specials again, and of course this one we are dedicating it to Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. Yes, that is a bit of a handful, and I have a guest with me, people. Lee from the Lights Camera Rant podcast. How are you, sir?
I'm going excellent. Thank you very much for inviting me back. And you're right, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning 1. That's
Part 1.
Yeah, it's a long title.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming on, man. I know it's very early in the morning for you. It's very much appreciated.
Yeah, that's all right. 5 a.m. I'd get up every morning to make an appearance.
Thank you. Right. So, initial reactions then, Lee. What did you make of this one? Let's get straight into it.
When I first saw it, when I came out of the theatre, I thought, which we were just talking about before we started recording, I was like, okay, really cool action. It plot's very relatable with right now with the rise of AI, and obviously that's a big threat to the writer's strike at the moment. But as I said, I just felt like there was no cliffhanger at the end, almost to the point where you almost didn't need to warrant a sequel. Like if you spend another 20 minutes of them hunting the sub, that could be the whole plot, because it wasn't like Infinity War. Or it wasn't like Harry Potter, where you're at the end of the movie and you're like, shit.
You don't know what the hell's going to happen, how they're going to possibly solve this. Whereas with this, they've got the key. So the whole point of this is that Gabriel, a man from Ethan Hunt's past, has come back, and he is kind of working for the entity, I guess. He's the entity's puppet, and this entity is a AI, artificial intelligence, that's kind of taking over the world, basically. And they need to find the source code area that's in this submarine to, control it and harness it and wield it how they want, kind of thing. But obviously, and at the end of the film, Ethan Hunt gets the key, and all he needs to do is find where the submarine is. So surely for part 2 then, so it's not much of a cliffhanger, so surely for part 2 there's going to be more complications here, for sure.
Have to be.
Chris McQuarrie is a really great writer. I'm a big fan of his ever since Usual Suspects. So it can't be this simple.
No. Surely something in the first 20 minutes or 30 minutes of part 2 has to smack you in the mouth, or you're just going to be like, all right, let's just go to the sub. The villain can't catch up to you. But I think Gabriel was a very menacing villain in the movie, and I think that he was a great choice. You're right, the entity's messiah, chosen disciple to represent this entity, which isn't really explained how he got chosen.
No, I'm sure. I mean, there's a lot of things teased in this film. They don't really go into the backstory of Ethan and Gabriel. You get a few flashback scenes with some woman that gets shot. We don't really know her name, so I'm sure we'll go into more detail in that in part 2. It's interesting as well. Apparently, they had shot a de-aged scene with Tom Cruise. Not that you have to do that much de-aging with that guy, frankly.
No. You just have to give him a haircut.
Yeah, that's it. A bit of makeup. But apparently they had, I don't know whether they shot it or it was written, but I think McQuarrie was like, well, you're just going to be distracted by the de-aging stuff and not the actual, story of what's going on in these scenes. So they kind of you can tell there's a lot of like backlit stuff, so you can't see them properly. You can't see Tom Cruise young properly. So the idea was there, but they shot it in such a way that you can't really see everything properly, which is interesting.
It's literally the dark tunnel with one lit on Gabriel.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, he killed a person. Who, what, where, when? I
think Gabriel was fine. Issei Morales. Like, I don't think he was the best villain in the series. You know, I think Philip Seymour Hoffman probably has that title still in Mission Impossible 3. I mean, he has some good fight scenes with Rebecca Ferguson in Venice. That was a really cool fight scene. And he's pretty awesome too on the train. But yeah, he's not really top tier villains in this series, I don't think. Not yet anyway. You know, there's still a lot to come. I feel like there's still a lot to learn about this character.
I agree. Well, especially the fact that he lost. It automatically makes him not such a great villain. But it was actually quite funny, that train scene. I was like, wow, this seems awfully familiar. I was like, oh, that's right. I've just watched Indiana Jones and this. Yeah. And I was like, all right, 2 back-to-back train fight scenes.
Yeah, I think this train scene really wipes the floor with the one in Indiana Jones quite easily.
Yeah. I was half expecting someone to be yell at Ethan, and then him, Gabriel, to get clocked by one of those pipe things. I was like, maybe.
And somehow come back later, 40 years later or whatever.
Fine. No scar, no nothing. I think with Gabriel, I guess it was more just such a what if. Like, what does he know so much about Ethan? And, you know, he seemed to be, until right at the end, he was one step ahead of everybody.
Yeah, he seemed to have all the cards, and I guess he had this very, like, charismatic stillness to him, calmness, that he knows everything's just going to fall into his lap. At some point, he's going to get both the keys at some point, and he did. He thought he had the key, you know. There's a lot of sleight of hand in this pickpocketing, which I found was quite funny.
There's a lot of magic in this than I expected.
Yeah. Instead of like the the mask gags in this, it's the pickpocketing gags. Basically, is we can't do anything special with the mask gag anymore. We've done everything that's humanly possible in this series with the mask. We got to do something else with all the twists. But that's the thing with this film. I think it wasn't particularly twisty or turny for me, like Fallout or Rogue Nation. This one is very kind of simple, really, with just the team just trying to find the keys. It was a big MacGuffin story, which never particularly goes down well, I don't think, these days. But I think this one does pull it off pretty well. But I think you're always expecting more twists and turns, and I don't think it particularly delivers on that. But I think in the action scenes, it definitely delivers for sure.
Oh,
I mean,
yes.
Right from the start, you have like this desert action scene that kind of reminded me a lot of playing like Call of Duty. I don't know why, but I mean, it's just the way it was shot. Like every time an enemy appeared in the doorway, like Ethan would just turn and shoot them straight away. And I loved like all the sniper stuff with Ilsa too. You know, the action just had a really great different feel to it. It was just really nice to see that.
Very gritty, and not saying like I say I'm sick of it, but it less CGI like a Marvel movie.
Oh yeah,
a lot more grittier. And you're right, that opening scene, which I thought, oh look, another sandstorm. Of course, he can't just go get it. It has to be a sandstorm. Nah, and you're right, big Call of Duty vibes, especially the doorway scenes. Well, that was a good actually twist to start. That you thought she was slightly dead. I thought that was a good. What I'm looking for, misdirect.
Yeah.
That was really cool. I think that was good. I did like the full opening scene with the sub.
Oh, right.
That was kind of unsettling with the sub that the enemy sub kept moving. I thought that was really cool. When I was watching, I was like, okay, that's cool that it's moving, that this entity has made this fake sub to try and destroy itself.
Hey, I'm James Lovino, and I'm here to tell you about Alternate Sides, a movie podcast with a twist. I've worked in the film business for 2 decades, but I haven't actually seen that many movies, and this has been driving my frequent collaborator, Sam, a self-confessed film snob, crazy. So every week, while he's stuck in his car trying to avoid getting a parking ticket, thanks to New York City's alternate side parking regulations, we discuss a classic film I've finally just gotten around to seeing. Alternate Sides, a new podcast about movies, parking, and a 25-year friendship, wherever you get your podcasts.
It was kind of a cool reveal as well in that kind of board meeting scene as well, that was always part of the plan for the Americans, but it went too far. It wasn't supposed to kill them. It was just supposed to be a test. Yeah, it was just a really kind of good idea that, the submarine, they had a fake US submarine and they fired the torpedo, no impact at all. And they kind of just forget about their own torpedo for a bit.
They do.
And they're like, it's not aborting. Hello.
Yeah.
And then they're pretty screwed.
Yeah, and the captain's like, let's calm down. Let's just sort of relax. And there's one guy going, hey.
Yeah, we're not out of this.
Yeah.
But I kind of really liked the room that they kept the entity in. I say kept the entity in. It's just ones and zeros.
Yeah, like a mind chamber.
It reminded me a lot of like Cerebro because it's very spherical.
Yes.
In the X-Men films.
Even when it was shot, it was like when it go on an angle, when it was panning out, it was very, Cerebro would probably be the best way to describe it. Because it's intense, because like they show them loading it, and they show how interconnected the keys are. And you're like, well, this is a big room for a sub.
Yeah. So the Rome car chase, I thought was pretty amazing. I don't think it was like the best car chase I've ever seen. There's definitely better ones out there. I think the Rogue Nation like motorbike chase is one of my favorite car chases of the series, and the one in Mission Impossible Fallout is really intense as well with the motorbikes and the cars. That was really great, and just Tom Cruise going against traffic on the Arc de Triomphe is just still insane. Yes, I'll say it again. When you do see that, and then you watch John Wick 4, like it's nothing compared to that. But that film is pretty insane, and definitely a very different type of action compared to these films. But I think what the most interesting thing about this chase is the tone. There's a lot of like humor here, which I wasn't expecting. When they're in the cop car and the black car, the action is fine. But when they get into like the little yellow Fiat, and then being chased by Pom, and who plays Paris in this like massive armored vehicle, is quite funny. And I love the moment when Pom is struggling to like start the car, and Grace is at the wheel at this point, and is like struggling to get control of the car, skidding all over the place. Was pretty funny. And when Ethan and Grace like swap seats after they like tumble in Rome, that was pretty genius to me.
Yeah, I just love the look. Oh, what?
Yeah.
But and you can tell from this scene, obviously good at acting as well. It looks like Paris Mary Pom just had so much fun being in the truck, and just mowing everything down. Yeah, you're right. This one had a bit more comedy to it. Do you think, I was talking to a friend the other day about this, do you think it could have been a little bit shorter? Do you think it dragged on just a little bit?
What, that chase or the whole film?
The chase scene.
No, not particularly, but I think it's just this tonal thing which is quite a surprise, and I think if you had it a little bit shorter, maybe it wouldn't have had that type of impact. Maybe, they've gone through the black car when he reverses and takes both the doors off. Like, that's pretty cool, but pretty intense. But and then it was like, oh, I need a new car, and he gets a Fiat, and you're not really going to get that impact if it's shorter. Maybe, I don't know. No, I think it was fine. Really, did it drag for you or?
Oh no, I guess it just got to me. Like, don't get me wrong, the ending to the chase film was really good. I just thought, oh, this is going on for a little while. This is a long chase, but it added all up in the end. And as soon as you land on the train tracks, I was like, you got about 5 minutes, if that, boy.
Yeah.
So that train conveniently comes around.
Yeah. I mean, they definitely, with the editing, they definitely cut it really fine. because you don't really see him get out of the train so much. It's more just fall on the side of the tracks.
No.
So, which I found interesting, like with just in the pace of the editing, really. They're like, no, we don't actually, we don't actually have like time maybe to like show him getting out. It's just just the fall is going to be enough to get him through here.
That's the second time there's a scene like that. Even at the ending, it kind of just cut out and, I'll jump too far ahead, but in the carriage, they kind of like just cut to being in the carriage. I was like, oh.
Yeah, that was a bit jarring, but
yeah,
I feel like with that they just didn't really know, or they couldn't really do a graceful way of all of them getting up properly, or just slow down the pace of it really, by quite some distance or something.
Oh, we didn't need to show everything.
I kind of get it, but it's a bit. It was a tad jarring, but yeah,
yeah.
I think the only thing that kind of bothered me a little bit with the Rome car chase was the fact that because they're in like a police station, right, in Rome, and Grace is able to get out. Ethan Hunt is trapped around all these cops, but she gets in a police car. I'm like, what are you doing? Why have you just stolen the police car? That makes no sense, but there we go.
Out of all the cars.
Yeah. Or just walk away. Just walk away.
Yeah.
But no, it's a Mission Impossible film. We're going to have a car chase, which is better for a viewing experience.
Yeah, and you've got to pick a police one. Did you, I swear, Hayley Atwell has not aged since Cap 1.
No.
She's not. But I did get really big Catwoman vibes with her character.
Oh, right, yeah.
Master Thief, wants a clean slate. I was like, okay, I'm sure top writing right there.
The airport sequence was pretty cool as well. I think it kept that kind of like spy genre feel to it, which sometimes can be lost sometimes in these type of movies. I just liked the fact that they fail quite miserably trying to achieve something quite simple in trying to recover one half of the key.
Just get the key. That's it.
From someone. And I loved all the stuff with the augmented reality sunglasses. That was good. And the CIA trying to find Ethan, and several times they just find guys and trying to rip masks off their faces that aren't there. That was some great comedy, and I can't believe we haven't seen that before in the series. Really,
no one's done it.
Yeah,
I thought that was a great part with they were changing the faces of everyone and they're running around. Those mercenaries were just set on a wild goose chase for this entire movie.
Oh, yeah.
The buyer, he didn't last long. I think he was only in for about 3 scenes and he was already knocked off.
But I kind of loved how, Benji finds a nuclear bomb as well and tries to disarm it with Luther, but they don't tell Ethan, which I find fascinating. And it definitely, plays into this idea that Hunt always kind of wants to protect everyone, but he can't protect everyone if he doesn't know all the information. And it was kind of funny as well that they end up telling him with 30 seconds to go.
What do you mean there's a bomb?
Yeah,
what do you mean?
That's something you need to tell me about, And
yeah, exactly right.
Yeah, it does definitely play on this theme that Chris McQuarrie is really going for here in this one and in the last one as well, with the fact that yes, he wants the mission to be complete, but he doesn't want any collateral damage. His whole team has to survive. That's the whole starting point from Fallout, is the fact that he let Luther live, but the plutonium was lost at the start of that movie. I mean, if he just killed Luther, they get the bombs back and job done, but that's just not acceptable for him, and they definitely play on that here. And I guess his team maybe are in this moment are just we need to help Ethan a lot more and don't distract him with something like this that we can handle ourselves, even though they cut it really fine. Of course they cut it fine. But it's just this whole idea of that this film is exploring in a way is that Ethan doesn't have control of everything in this story. That's half the reason why Ilsa Faust gets killed in this, because in the Entity / Gabriel basically gives them a choice. One of you will die, Grace or Ilsa will die. and I will still get the keys. And he's like, no, that if that happens, I will hunt you down and kill you myself, or whatever.
Yeah.
And in that moment, you're like, well, that's never going to happen because no one really dies on the team apart from the first one, in the first movie, in that first scene in Prague where pretty much his whole team dies. And then from that moment on, like, no one really gets killed in his team. So you're never really expecting that.
No. And it's sad because as soon as Gabriel mentioned the fact one of them's going to die, I was like, in my head, I'm like, well, I don't believe it's going to be Haley Atwell. They're not going to get her to come in and die. But then I think that's probably the halfway point.
There's no way you would sign on for the part if, like, you die halfway through.
That's exactly right. But then again, I also thought, well, no, he just saved her at the very start of the movie and got her back. So it'd be weird if she did die. But then, yeah, he did die, and it was all led from Tom Cruise having a nice, good sprint scene.
Yes.
Which I think we got 4 sprint scenes in this movie this time.
On top of the airport, in Venice.
Rome. He doesn't run, he sprints.
Yeah.
Like,
no broken ankle in this movie.
Nah. And I did think of course you're running on top of the airport. Of course you're running on top of that to get to a gate. Did you like the party scene? That gave me big John Wick vibes when they were at the party and the White Widow. I was like, I could totally see a cameo of John Wick walking past.
A shared universe. Yeah, I mean, these two films are probably the best 2 action films of this year, I would say.
Oh, yeah.
Easily. It was kind of really interesting, that party scene, because when they mentioned that, the entity created this party, set up this party, you're like, oh, okay, this is weird. And the kind of the music changes and you get all these visual displays of these, circular spherical patterns representing the entity. It was kind of weirdly eerie and unnerving. I was just like, oh, this is something very new that is kind of very current right now and a bit scary right now.
I know, and that's why I thought this was a good timing for this to come out, especially this plot, and it's watching them at the party. And like Gabriel says it, like, do you think we're all here just by fluke? This was orchestrated.
And again, going back to Gabriel, he's like, yeah, I knew all this was going to happen. Like, the entity told me, I know exactly what's going to happen. It's just that calmness from him. It's just like, yeah, one of you's going to die. It just depends what you do that will determine that. Even though, yes, I agree that I think the only real one that would have died in this is going to be Ilsa. I think it was pretty obvious, frankly, the fact that as soon as Ilsa meets Gabriel on the bridge in Venice, you're like, yeah, she's going to get got here. But it's interesting as well in the start of that, because we haven't really seen Gabriel fight before. So that was kind of an interesting point to start off with.
2 knives.
Yeah, 2 knives against a sword. That was kind of cool. And when she started failing with her signature thigh grip thing, when she jumps up on someone's neck and that kind of didn't work, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, she's definitely going to die here.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. I was like, yeah, you're going to fall, or he's going to surprise stab you in the heart.
Yeah, but again, going back to this whole thing that, Chris McQuarrie is playing with is the fact that Hunt always saves the day. He never lets anyone from his team die. So, they're definitely balancing that with your expectations still. So I think that was kind of still pretty well done for me.
I'd liked how the music stopped. It just got more eerily silent as closer Ethan got to it. And not even that, but I think also the fight scene between him and the thug and Paris in the tight corridor was a bit different.
Yeah, that was kind of interesting. I think they were definitely going with a lot more Dutch angles, like in the first movie from De Palma with Pom Clementif's character as Paris with that fight. When I kind of saw it, I was like, how the hell is this going to work? But somehow they kind of pulled it off. I was pretty impressed with that.
I thought he was always going to hit her to kill her, but I was like, nah, it's Mantis. She's going to be to the end.
Yeah, and it's never like Ethan's way, is it, to he's never going to kill someone like that.
Nah.
Even though he may want to in the moment, but he's never going to actually do it.
No. And did you like how the fact the entity started taking on their voices?
Oh yeah, that was so cool.
It was directing him. I was like, oh yeah. So like, and that's the thing, how dangerous that is because you can do that now. There's websites where you can put your voice into and it can copy it.
Yeah, scammers are doing it all the time now. Apparently, it's kind of really scary stuff. Let's talk Benji Dunn then. I don't think he does anything particularly practically new here. I mean, he has some funny bits, like before the motorcycle jump. He's like, "Yeah, I'm under some serious pressure here." I'm like, "Yeah, okay, sure thing, buddy."
I was looking at it going, "God, you're starting to look old, aren't you?"
Yeah.
Like compared to the last one, I thought you've like aged a bit since the last one. And you're right. Pretty much his shining moment was the bomb.
Yeah.
And then everything else, he wasn't even driving the car, so he wasn't even a driver.
No. I loved the train sequence. Definitely the highlight for me is when like the bridge blows up and Grace and Ethan are in the last car and Ethan is literally hanging off the last one and they have to like try and move through each car and like, you know, the kitchen car blows up as they go out. That was a kind of a cool, interesting little sequence there. You know, and I love that how they kind of like mess with gravity as well. Like there's that kind of really cool slow-mo moment where the film is kind of trying to manipulate gravity there. That was interesting. But it really reminded me of like the Uncharted games. Again, like a lot of game references I found in this movie where you're trying to like move up like some sort of vehicle or building that's slowly crashing. Surely you do that in some of the Uncharted games. I'm pretty sure you do.
You do, and it's funny you actually mentioned that because I didn't look at the post, but there was actually this morning, I think on IGN,
right,
showing a comparison between that train scene and the Uncharted scene.
Really? Amazing. I knew I'd seen that somewhere before.
So familiar.
Yeah. That's why it was so intense, because it was so intense doing it for real, kind of.
Real. So annoying. You know, I did like, just a small detail, but I did like how every carriage that they were going through was different. Like it wasn't just another passenger car each time. It was, you know, you got the kitchen carriage and then you had the bar carriage. Yeah. And of course, there's a piano that's going to kill all of you. It actually made me think of The Lost World.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Scene.
Yeah.
I was like, she's probably going to fall down and, you know, she'll have to wait or something, like just hold there. And, yeah, I did think it was also a little bit morbid that Gabriel hooked the conductor up as the whistle.
Yeah.
Hung him up. I was like, oh,
yeah.
That's a bit dark.
It is. I thought it was good, but I didn't think it was as like gnarly as like Henry Cavill's death though in Fallout, where he gets literally a hook to the face with the weight of a helicopter. That was pretty awesome. I did love the train sequence, and it was just such edge of your seat stuff. Like you just didn't really know how this scene was going to end at all, and when they are just kind of like perched on this table thing. And you're just like, how the hell are they going to get out of it? And yes, we've already kind of mentioned then there's this very jarring cut, but it's interesting that Paris is the one that helps them up as well after she's being betrayed by Gabriel.
Which Gabriel predicted, saying that you will betray me. And she's like, what are you on about?
Yeah. But of course, like the biggest stunt is the bike stunt. There's so much like talk about this, and for me, it's just insane. Like, and the most dangerous. I think one of the most dangerous stunts I've ever seen. Really, I think it reminds me a lot of one of the very early Bond films with Roger Moore in The Spy Who Loved Me, when he skis off a cliff.
Yes,
and then opens the parachute up, which I think that's more dangerous because the stunt guy that was doing that is obviously is a lot heavier than the skis, because he had to take the skis off. And if you notice in that film, the skis nearly rips a hole in the parachute. The ski and the parachute do collide.
I have to go back and watch that.
That was the one stunt that kind of it reminded me of. But yeah, I mean, the amount of, apparently it took him 3 years of training to pull this off. Like, he only had it was like 13,000 bike jumps of practice. Not like 13,000 like jumps that you see in the movie, but just getting used to the bike. He had like a specially made bike for it without a speedometer. 500 skydives to get it right.
Oh my god.
And it just lasts like less than 60 seconds.
Yeah, I know. And then it's like over. But didn't they shoot this first?
Yeah, that was the first thing. And I think he did it like 8 times as well. Because Macquarie was like, yeah, I need every angle here to get this shot properly. I mean, Tom Cruise must have been like, Jesus, man, 8 times. But I think he's very willing to do it, though, because he's such a crazy man.
Yeah.
But, I mean, do you think there is a bit of a misconception that he is crazy to do these things? Because the amount of preparation, I think, that goes into these things is pretty extensive. I mean, 3 years of training just for this one stunt.
I take it up that he is the embodiment of an adrenaline junkie.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
He loves it too much. If someone's, he's one of those people that tells you, oh, you can't do that. I'm doing it. What do I need to do? Like, he'll do it for the shot, for that cinematic experience, and just to say, I did this when other people will do it. So he'll focus and he'll pull it off, which the stunt in the movie looked great.
Absolutely.
And it was on like all the marketing posters for it.
Yeah, that I feel like that stunt is just like one of the sole bits of marketing focus that they do for the film. Like, there's extensive featurettes, I think, videos on it. Like, you see all the ramp, the big ramp that they built, which cost an awful lot of money. I found it kind of funny that they kind of added like bumps in the road on the bike as it was going through. So it's not entirely real. There's added bumps there.
Yeah. See,
I kind of find it funny that literally the mountain is shaped like a ramp as well. They're like, yeah, we can't really make it look any different, to be honest. So
yeah,
that was.
I thought that when I was watching it, I was like, wow, that point is like perfect for you to jump right off on a motorbike, isn't it? In this entire natural element of a mountain, that's a really good spot right there.
Yeah,
but you look at that, and then it makes you go, oh, well, he did that. He did the plane. He did the rock climbing,
Burj Khalifa. On the side of climbing on the Burj Khalifa.
That's right, yeah.
And piloting a helicopter in Fallout, an acrobatic one, which is insane.
That's right. Like, what's he going to do for part 2?
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm just like, obviously, with things going on in Hollywood right now, with the strikes, it could be quite a while before we actually see part 2. But it begs the question, how the hell are they going to top this? Because a lot of the appeal of these films, and by the way, this film is doing really well at the box office compared to a lot of things. Not like amazingly, but like it's doing pretty well.
Yeah. Until this Thursday or Friday.
Yeah.
And then...
Yeah, and then Barbenheimer hits. But
yeah, Barbenheimer. No, Oppenheimer, then Barbie, then we go party.
Yes. But yeah, this is very much the appeal for these films, is just seeing what like stunts Tom Cruise is going to do next. So I really can't think of how they're going to top that for the number 8. I'm pretty sure they'll have something up their sleeve. I feel like as well in part 2, it's going to be a lot darker tone as well.
I think it needs to be.
Because like Rogue Nation and Fallout were kind of a part 1 and a part 2 anyway, with, all the Solomon Lane stuff and Ilsa Faust. So they could have easily put part 1 and part 2 on those films as well. So I think definitely tonally there's going to be a more serious tone, I think, darker tone, like in Fallout for sure for part 2.
I think there has to be if they're really going to go with this is going to be the last one. When did the first one come out?
96.
Yeah, well, yeah, 30 years.
Yeah.
By the time he's did the first one till now, surely I'm like, how many missions could be impossible that someone hasn't shot you?
Yeah, Mission Impossible 8, not so impossible anymore.
Yeah, not so. Mission Impossible 9, early retirement.
It's interesting how they kind of make these films in general in terms of a writing point of view, because I think I read that they think of just stunts that they want to do. You know, Tom Cruise was like, yeah, I want to ride a motorcycle off a cliff and use a parachute. And McQuarrie was like, yeah, I want to crash a train.
Yep. All right. Keys, submarine. Yeah, this writes itself.
Yeah. And they literally just write the scripts around what they want to do stunt wise. I just find that's amazing. And I literally heard an interview with Simon Pegg about Rogue Nation, was the fact that they were always intending to do like Tom Cruise hanging off the side of an aeroplane, that massive tanker aeroplane, but they didn't really know where to put it in the script. They were like, let's just dump it at the start.
Straight at the start.
Yeah, it's like stunts first, then we'll write it. But I mean, credit to Chris McQuarrie though, like the writing doesn't feel like rushed or anything, because I think like I kind of said this in our Mission Impossible episode as well, but Chris McQuarrie just has such a writing talent. The fact that you're not just going from action scene to action scene, it just feels really fluid. They're just not writing something ridiculous to get Tom Cruise into ridiculous situations. It never feels like that. It always feels really organic, which I find amazing with his writing.
100%. And that's the thing is, like, yes, this is technically a glorified action film. The plot still stays, is still strong all the way through. The writing and the intensity continues all the way to the end. Besides pretty much those really quick cuts and the ending, I was like, it keeps on going the entire way through. There wasn't really anything I was like, oh, that was a bit weird, or they didn't really explain that very well. They explained how the keys work and why nobody knows. Vanessa, I can't remember her last name, the White Widow.
Vanessa Kirby, yeah.
Yeah, when it says, oh, she's the White Widow, I'm like, that doesn't have the same ring to it as Black Widow, I must say. Doesn't have the same threat.
No. But I thought, like, Vanessa Kirby had some great comedy pratfalls on the train.
Yeah, she did.
That was pretty funny. Kind of great range as well from her of what she's trying to do here. Like, she's trying to pretend to be Grace on the train for a fair amount of time, I would say. And I don't know if you saw this, but there was just something about her makeup as well that fell off. And I was just like, are they trying to create this feel that she is actually wearing a mask? I don't know, or was that just me?
No, I get what you mean.
It just felt really weird to me. I don't know if that's just her acting as well, that she was just kind of just embodying two characters in that moment. I thought she was great as well, especially the pratfalls.
I want you to help this girl, and I want you to forget that we ever had this conversation, and when I see you, I will also forget I had this conversation with you. Okay.
Yeah, that was funny. Yeah, she's a great actress. I kind of hope she is in the next one as well, as the White Widow, continuing her story, hopefully.
I'm sure she will be.
There's definitely a lot of callbacks to the very first film. You have the whole, like, train sequence, and basically, I feel like Grace is basically the embodiment of Tom Cruise doing the magic trick in the first movie as a character. That's just her character. Yeah. But also, you have Henry Czerny back as Kittredge. He was great to see. Kittredge back. Definitely one of my favorite villains or, antagonists. I just love the way this guy talks, just the way he delivers his lines. Just really a really great actor for me. Also going back to like Hayley Atwell, like she's kind of like the heart of the story here, I would say. The fact that she becomes an IMF agent, that she has effectively no choice to become a ghost like Ethan Hunt was, which was interesting. They're kind of definitely playing with that idea more, mixing that with the kind of the comedy humor, like in that very opening scene with Hunt where this guy just comes in and he's like, oh, food delivery. And Hunt is like, "Oh, you need to say the security question."
Yeah,
it just feels like they're recruiting like more people, and he's maybe like remembering more about his first time when he had to do that role or something. They're definitely delving into what it actually means to be an IMF agent in this film, which I kind of find interesting.
It's a bit of like day one stuff, and I think that obviously if they're leading this to be the final one, which they have said, I think it is definitely a good callback. And you're right, like after the entire movie, Grace is like, "Yeah, I'll join. I've got no other option or I'm going to die." But she did struggle with that. There's a good scene where she's struggling with the whole thing about joining, and you see that she struggles with that right the last second with almost having all the money she wants. But I have no doubt, next one, she'll be right front and center. I wonder if she should be more of a fighter and a bit more of a spy, if you will, next one.
Yeah, I think so, because they definitely had a very conscious effort to show us that she doesn't actually have that many fighting skills in that, after the party scene, which is interesting to show to kind of start off her arc, I guess. So it'll be interesting to see like how much she develops. Is she going to turn into someone like Ilsa again? Like what was interesting about Ilsa's character in these films is that she kind of plays both sides as well, kind of, her own interests with the British government and with the IMF team as well. And also with her death, like I wasn't particularly sad when she died, but I was just kind of gutted because she was just a really great character.
Yeah. It's like, oh.
Yeah. I wanted to see more of her.
Yeah, I was like, okay, that was awfully quick.
Yeah. I say more of her. We've had 3 films, but...
yeah.
Carry on.
I was going to say, that does raise the question of who's going to die in the next one. Someone's going to cark it.
Do you reckon?
Yeah. I reckon there's going to be another big death. Or would you be happy if Ethan did, like, the hero's death at the end?
No, I don't think so. Well, I don't know. It depends how they do it, but that's what they're playing with. That's what McQuarrie's definitely playing with, isn't it? As we've kind of said already, Ethan doesn't want any collateral damage. He wants everyone to live as well as, save the world. It's interesting as well with Ving Rhames, his character, Lufus Sitwell. I didn't think we were going to see much of him, but it was just really nice that he's in it a lot more than I was expecting, which is great. And I've always kind of said that he's like the heart of the team. I guess you could argue as well, he's in our Mission Impossible episode that he's could be just seen as the hype man for Ethan Hunt.
True.
But what worries me is that when he says to Ethan that he can't be with him in the last mission on the train, I was like, oh no, you got to come back for the next movie, surely. So
yeah,
I'll be pretty gutted if he's not in the next one, because that was one thing that I really don't like about Ghost Protocol is that he has like one cameo at the end. I'm like, what? This is not a proper Mission Impossible film because Ving Rhames is not in it.
Where have you been the whole time?
So I am slightly worried about part 2 that we're not going to have Lufus Sitwell.
I hope he's in for a decent amount of time. I did think it was a little bit. I was like, okay, you're just disappearing for the last 30 minutes of the movie. Like, I understand why. Like, it makes sense. He's going to go off the grid and he's going to disappear. But I'm like, wouldn't it make more sense if you said that at the end? Like, in between the 2 movies, that I've got to disappear, not in the last 40 minutes of the movie or 30 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, that was kind of an odd decision, yeah. I mean, do you reckon we're going to see him in part 2 or not?
I reckon we will, but I reckon he'll pop up. Like, he will surprise the team out of nowhere.
Yeah, in like they do in when they really need him, kind of thing. Maybe in like the opening scene of part 2, maybe with his computer tech.
That's right.
But then that's the thing. That's what this film is also playing with, is the fact that their tech is pretty useless. And I love that scene with Simon Pegg manipulating. Well, Simon Pegg's voice has been taken over. I don't know if we said this already, but like the AI takes it over and makes Tom Cruise go all over Venice.
Left, right, left, no, go the other way around. And someone's like, it's not me.
Yeah. And then the mask doesn't work, so he can't go on the, pretend to be someone else.
Yeah.
Which they kind of have done before. in Mission Impossible films, but I think there is still questions of like how the entity operates, like because then when I was wondering when Benji is driving and then decides to make the car like self-drive, I'm like, can the entity not?
That's a good point.
Like take over the car here? What's the rules here? I don't know. Does it have to have internet or what?
That's right. The entity wasn't even mentioned anything in that last with the whole train. It wasn't present. It wasn't probably the only thing it was present was the truck, I guess, for Gabriel to perfectly fall. Oh no, it was on his watch. If the entity told him when to jump.
Yeah.
But that was a bit it. But it's interesting that the entity isn't doing a lot more at the moment. Like it's just almost waiting for this whole fight to all happen.
Yeah. Well, it was on the Orient Express, which is a steam train. Unless he can manipulate steam, then fair enough. They're all a bit screwed.
Shit. Yeah, there's stuff there.
But yeah, there's still a lot of questions that need answering in terms of what this entity AI can do. And I'm sure we'll definitely learn more of how powerful this thing is.
Oh, 100%. Do you think there will be a time gap, or do you think this will be straight back to back?
Well, there'll definitely be a time gap in terms of release, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Oh, yeah.
But I reckon there will be, because they are filming it they were filming it right now, recently.
Right now, I think it stopped this week.
Yeah.
Stopped in the past week.
But Tom Cruise has got long hair at the moment. I've always noticed this in Mission Impossible films, where Tom Cruise's hairstyle is like different every time, and it was always a really great pattern. Like the first film, short hair. Second film, long hair. Third film, short hair. Fourth film, long hair again. And then they mess it up in Rogue Nation. I'm like, what the hell? He's got long hair again. That isn't right. It's not a proper Mission Impossible film.
You've ruined it.
And then it's short hair again in Fallout. I'm like, no, it's the wrong way round. Where's the proper hairstylist on these movies?
You stuffed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stuffed it with a hair.
Right. Well, yeah, right now, which unfortunately, like pretty much anything that's in filming right now is delayed. So any release date next year is completely forfeited almost. Because I think the sequel's meant to come out in June 28th. I'll be very surprised if they hit that target.
Yeah, very surprised. When part 2 does come out, I think they are going to pull out all the stops, I think, and really impress us big time. I don't know really how they're going to do that, but I think they'll definitely make it pretty spectacular. And I think this is definitely one of my favorite film franchises right now, just because of how outlandish the action is, and they try and do everything for real now. And I think it's safe to say, like, Tom Cruise is definitely like a better stuntman than he is an actor now, just with the level of difficulty of the stunts. Yes, you can argue it's probably just feeding his adrenaline,
his ego,
his adrenaline junkie fixes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm very excited for the next one. I just don't know where this story is going to go and what's going to happen. I want to see Kittredge back. I want to see all these characters back.
Oh, yeah.
On full form. Yeah, I'm very excited.
100%. And I'm looking forward to Mission Impossible Hunt for Red. I can't remember what the sub's name is, but that's pretty much what the plot's going to be.
Hunt for Red October.
Yeah. With Tom Cruise. That's pretty much what it's going to be.
Yeah, the code word has got to be Red October or something. But
yeah, that's right. But I would say the Mission Impossible franchise is one of those ones where it keeps its consistency. You know what you're getting into when you walk in. Not comparing to Fast and Furious, but you can jump into any movie and you don't need to have a lot of background of what's going on. You can just dive straight into it, which is probably one of the big things why this has been so successful compared to almost Fast and Furious is you need to have a little bit of background because everyone's a second murdered father from a third film. Shit. And obviously Marvel and DC, they're their own conversation, but you can pick up any Mission Impossible and just happily just watch it.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, and I think literally seeing things done for real in camera is just a big appeal for audiences, because you can't cheat them with that, and that's why people want to see these things. So on the big screen, I think I would say like Fallout and Rogue Nation are probably better than this one, but I mean that's a really high bar. Those two films are very, very good. I think just below those two films for me, this one sits. But I've only seen it once, so my mind might change.
And it's a part one.
Yeah.
It could be like part two is always better than the part one.
Oh yeah, but I mean, what a part one though. I mean, we've had a lot of good part ones recently. You got Dune part one and Across the Spider-Verse part one. Well, it's not actually called part one, but it was called part one for a long time. So yeah, Hollywood is finally getting part one stories right.
Yeah, like they're their own movie. It's not just giant prelude, which I felt like with what was it, Hunger Games.
Yeah,
Hunger Games. That always makes me think of that part one. I'm like, nothing happens. Nothing major happened.
No.
To go, this is amazing. Like you could cut this down to a prologue.
Yeah.
But then you watch Infinity War and Endgame where they did it perfectly.
Absolutely.
Own separate films, different tones on both. So if they change the tone for this, as you said, a lot darker, it'd fit perfectly.
Absolutely. So final thoughts, Lee?
For an action film, for a thrill ride, and most likely, as you said, the best action movie between this and John Wick this year, I'd say everyone to go watch this just purely to see that stunt.
Yeah.
On the big screen. I do wish I watched it in IMAX.
Yeah, I wasn't able to either.
But the closest IMAX to me is an hour away in the city. So I'm like,
same.
I'll just watch it normal. But yeah, the ending, for everyone watching the ending, if you're thinking it'd be like, oh, it's really exciting for part two. Yeah, there is no cliffhanger.
No.
The hero won.
Yeah. But still a lot more story to go. I think we'll leave it there then, people. Lee, thank you ever so much for coming on the podcast. Very much appreciated. Had a good time.
Anytime.
It's goodbye from Lee.
See you guys.
Yeah, and it's goodbye from me. I'm going to think of some absolutely crazy stunts that Tom Cruise might actually have to do for the next one. And try and think of that for a while. I'm like, what is he actually going to do to top that motorbike stunt? My God.
I know, but the thing is, whatever you write down, it's most likely true.
Yep. Bye-bye. That's it for this week's pod. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. But don't stop there. Get involved and tell us what your favourite films are relating to the episodes. Send us a DM or comment on Instagram and TikTok at Film vs. Film Podcast, for Twitter at FVF_podcast. If you do, we'll give you a shout out on the next episode. If you're feeling really generous, you can buy us a one-off coffee at our Buy Me a Coffee account. Remember, please leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. Pod signing off.